Today we're going to talk about fake news and health, and it seems to me that anybody who challenges or questions the narrative that we are being given by mainstream media and even some government sources, there is this beeline to discredit what these people are saying, okay? And I'm certainly one of these people who likes to fact check the information that I get, especially around health. And the purpose of this chat is to I guess highlight that importance of critical thinking and evaluating the information we're getting. Some of the people that I talk to, there's almost this cognitive dissonance that goes along with just refusing to believe that we could have information that's not accurate being thrown at us from every quarter. So I've pieced together a few clips initially, just I guess to raise awareness that we can have some skepticism about the information that we're getting especially from mainstream news channels. So have a look at this first clip, and we have this idea that we have these television anchors who are portraying themselves as noble and with our best interests at heart, and we also even have this idea that these guys are actually narrating based on their own opinions. And this clip might put some stuff into perspective that actually is not the case. These guys get scripts from executives that are in higher positions than them.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 The next little clip is from a fellow called Brian Rose from a channel called London Real. It's one of the biggest YouTube channels in the world, and he has some fantastic guests and incredible interviews on the channel. And this is a little clip that he released the other day, and I think it puts things quite clearly into perspective.
So I just got told about a brand new article that came out that said in the last 5 years, there's been a 20% drop in confidence in the mainstream media. And the funny thing about this survey is that this is the greatest drop in human history of confidence in the mainstream media. And for a lot of people out there, this is going to be a big surprise. People are going to want to talk about it. I'm sure President Trump is going to want to throw that at all of the mainstream media and the quote-unquote fake news that he attacks all the time. But this is something that we see on the ground every single day.
The next clip I'm going to play for you is quite incredible, and the reasons behind all these sites putting this information out there with this particular number, I have no idea. I'll leave it up to you to make your own mind up about it. The point I want to make with this is that there's stuff that goes on that basically means that there is a fair possibility that the news we are getting is manipulated for some reason. What that reason is, it's up to you to decide. Feel free to comment on it and let me know what you think, but it's a good example about how I guess the information we are receiving for whatever motive is manipulated.
May know, as of today, and I say as of today at this hour, we have 33 confirmed positive tests for the virus.
Yesterday we had 22 cases. Today we have 33 cases, so it has gone up by 11. That brings, those are 11 new cases, 22 goes to 33.
As we sort through this here in Arkansas, today we have 33 confirmed positive cases in Arkansas.
As of today, we have 33 confirmed cases with Boston residents. We expect those numbers to climb.
As of this afternoon, we have 33 Pennsylvanians who have tested positive for COVID-19.
So as of this morning, there were 33 confirmed cases in North Carolina.
Evening to you. Lots to get to tonight. I'm Leon Hendricks. We want to start with new information into our newsroom. Within the past couple of hours, there are now 33 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Michigan.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the news at 6. I'm Richard Gerhard. Karina Corral has the night off. More cases of the coronavirus were confirmed today in San Luis Obispo County, bringing the total number now to 33.
Right now, Georgia is reporting a total of 99 cases in 19 counties. That is 33 new cases from just yesterday.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Swenson. More cases and more events affected. Here is the latest coronavirus news. There are now 33 cases in Louisiana.
As expected, the number of cases of COVID-19 jumps. A total of 33 people in our state have been tested and are confirmed to have the coronavirus.
Day 4 of the shelter-at-home order brought 6 new confirmed cases of the coronavirus to San Luis Obispo County, bringing the total number to 33.
All troopers will be professional, polite, and will treat everyone with dignity and respect.
These latest steps as the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Rhode Island jumps by 33 overnight.
And with 4 more deaths reported overnight, the death toll now stands at least 33.
The Ministry of Public Health has confirmed a batch of 33 new COVID-19 patients. Thailand now has an accumulated number of cases.
తెలంగాణలో కరోనా వైరస్ బారిన పడిన వారి సంఖ్య 33కు పెరిగింది. నిన్న కొత్తగా 6 కేసులు నమోదయ్యాయి. ఇందులో ఒకరు కరీంనగర్కు చెందిన 23 ఏళ్ల విద్యార్థి. The Ministry of Public Health has reported that the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Thailand remains at 33.
10 new confirmed cases have been reported in Malaysia, bringing the total now to 93. Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said they were first and second generation close contacts of case 33.
Patients 21 to 24 announced yesterday evening, March 9, 2020. This brings the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 33.
I mean, that is fairly incredible, so I don't really have a good explanation for it. Again, make up your own mind about it. And this is something else that I got sent by somebody who follows some of my stuff. Again, the reason, the why, the wherewithal, I'm not too sure. But if we have a look at this, every link on this little clip, from this post, they all work and they all seem to go to legitimate channels. So if I have a click on here and if we watch the website loading up, it all seems really quite legitimate. Here's another link. And again, it seems to go to a legitimate and real website. And I've actually checked through all these links here, and they all seem to go through real websites. Again, make up your own mind about the motives behind it, whether it's secret societies, whatever the hell you think. I'm not interested in going down that road, but it just is a good example of, for some reason, our media being manipulated. Now, the next kind of challenging thing that we come across, or that I seem to come across, is again this idea that there are all these bodies and that there's all these numbers and there's all these figures and they have to be right. So a fellow called Jeff Berwick from a channel called The Dollar Vigilante does a really good job of putting some stuff together. And he made this little clip about the guy who we received our information from about the deaths that were going to happen from this pandemic. And I've known about this guy for a fair while, and I think if he were in a private industry of any sort, he would be fired within the first 6 months of working in there. I can't believe that he still is a government advisor with the amount of grossly inaccurate misinformation that he's put out there. And to be honest with you, I actually think this guy should be subject to legal charges, and he should be put in front of a jury. As a result of his information, countries got shut down.
Estimates of death rates from COVID-19 came from now disgraced Neil Ferguson of the Imperial College of London. Ferguson was behind the disputed research that sparked the mass culling of 11 million sheep and cattle during the 2001 outbreak of so-called foot and mouth disease. He also predicted that up to 150,000 people could die. There were fewer than 200 deaths. In 2002, Ferguson predicted that up to 50,000 people would likely die from exposure to BSE, mad cow disease, in beef. In the UK, there were only 177 deaths from BSE. In 2005, Ferguson predicted that up to 150 million people could be killed from bird flu. In the end, only 282 people died worldwide from the disease between 2003 and 2009. In 2009, a government estimate based on Ferguson's advice said a reasonable worst-case scenario was that the swine flu would lead to 65,000 British deaths. In the end, swine flu killed 457 people in the UK. And this year, his estimates were that 200,000 people in the UK, 2 million in the US, and millions more deaths worldwide would occur. In March.
And this is a little clip about the code that he used in these computer models in order to deliver us this information.
That his Imperial College model of COVID-19 was based on undocumented 13-year-old computer code that was intended to be used for a feared influenza pandemic rather than a coronavirus. Ferguson declined to release his original code so other scientists could check his results. He only released a heavily revised set of code recently after a 6-week delay.
Now, this next clip here is from one of the leading consultants for the NHS and for the government about this pandemic. And just have a really close listen to what he's saying. And essentially what he's saying is that tests are not being run for the figures that we're using.
The total death rate, it's worth remembering again that the ONS rates are people who've got COVID on their death certificate. It doesn't necessarily mean they were infected because many of them haven't been tested, so we just need to understand the difference.
And the next clip I'm going to show you is actually a White House briefing. And again, this is a good example of how we cannot trust all these figures that we're getting. This woman is in actual fact telling us how the figures are made up, and literally they're just made up. So all these figures about this number of people dying here and this number of people dying here, it's what we call subjective. It's not objective. Okay? So basically the diagnosis and the criteria being used is guesswork. So anytime you're seeing 1,000 people, 100 people, etc., etc., etc. dying, you have to be aware of this information.
Tests are not 100% sensitive or specific. And I'm going to go over this over and over again. So if you have 1% of your population infected and you have a test that's only 99% specific, that means that when you find a positive, 50% of the time it will be a real positive and 50% of the time it won't be.
Right, this next clip again is from The Dollar Vigilante, and he pieced together a good few different clips of people visiting hospitals that were supposed to be overflowing and flooded. And the point again being that all this fear-mongering is coming from the mainstream media, and can we trust it? Just have a look at this and see what you think.
Hospital has gone viral as countless people across the world show up to hospitals described as war zones and overflowing with patients to find the hospitals nearly completely empty, like this one in Germany.
Ins Virchow-Klinikum geschickt und gesagt, hier würden alle Berliner Corona-Fälle zusammenkommen und das zwischen 8 und 16 Uhr. Das heißt, die meiste Zeit über ist gar nichts los. Schauen wir mal hier an. Also die sind zwar da hinten in den Zelten, in den Zweien, die jetzt leer sind, aber was mich wundert, es ist doch nicht der Ausnahmezustand, der in den Medien beschrieben wird.
And then we had another clip about, all these mass graves being dug in New York City and these bodies everywhere. And again, if you fact check, all is not as it seems.
Like with the New York Post's sensationalized headline that they are burying countless bodies in mass graves on Hart Island, something they've been doing for 151 years, but used to put the masses into fear.
Since 1869, prison labor has been used to bury unclaimed and unidentified New Yorkers in mass graves of 150 adults or 1,000 infants.
Next, we had the reports of, the furnaces burning overtime in Mexico and everybody being swamped with death and destruction and bodies everywhere.
And so, after numerous so-called media outlets, including Mike Adams, all parroted the news that the crematoriums are burning non-stop to keep up with the wave of dead bodies in flooded hospitals.
And I think we owe a lot to people like this who go around and actually check out if some of this stuff is true. And this guy went around, as you can see, to different places to find out about all these bodies. Have a look at the results he found, and he lives in Mexico, so he's got a fair idea of what actually does go on there.
First, we called a few crematoriums in Mexico City, and the ones we called were closed. Finally, we found one that was open, the San Isidro Crematory. The parking lot had a sign warning that it was a highly infectious disease zone, and the parking lot was nearly empty, and there were just a few people there, including the manager, and a police officer, making sure we weren't recording.
So, hasta la ventanilla. Pero solo tengo como dos preguntas. ¿No estás lleno?
Sí, no.
¿Qué tú escuchaste sobre eso que es lleno?
Sí, pero no estamos. Está usando el servicio.
Ok. ¿Y tú conoces otros crematorios? ¿Ellos están llenos?
Miguel Hidalgo. La Miguel Hidalgo, pero no sabría decirle si están llenos o no.
Ok. Gracias. Gracias.
After having trouble finding any open crematoriums, and after seeing the San Isidro Crematory was empty, and the manager having said they are not busy, and even though he had heard what they are saying on the news, he told me there isn't much happening at crematoriums in Mexico City, I next decided to go to a hospital in the city to see what is reported as a massive amount of COVID patients. Again, I tried calling a few hospitals, particularly private ones, as I thought they would be easier to gain access to, but the ones I tried to call were all closed. The reason many private hospitals in Mexico City are closed is unclear, but as we know, countless hospitals worldwide are laying off employees or even closing down due to lack of work. I then decided to go to a public hospital in one of the poorer Mexico City. It was eerily quiet. Like with the crematorium, there were plenty of police cars and officers, empty parking lots, and barely any people except workers there.
Hola.
¿Dónde estaba usted? ¿En cama?
Él solo dije, ven aquí, no sé nada. Pero
¿de qué viene el enfermo de respiratorio?
yo no sé nada, solo alguien dije, va aquí. Tal vez, no sé, tal vez es equivocado.
Posiblemente, ¿por qué no les marca?
Yo estaba cerca, entonces yo voy. Pero, ¿por qué están? Yo escucho mucha gente, no hay nadie, ¿no?
Es que es COVID.
¿Es COVID? ¿Limpiar?
Es un hospital COVID.
¿COVID? ¿Eso es?
Entran de aquel lado cuando vienen a hacerse la prueba.
Ok. Pero no hay mucha gente, ¿no?
No, no hay mucha gente, por lo mismo de que les informan vía telefónica de sus pacientes, los que ya tienen en cama.
Ah, ok. ¿Hay otro lugar para el COVID?
O la otra entrada es de aquel lado.
Ok, gracias. Ok. Oh, it's in coaches? Oh, here comes the police. All right. Let's see what he has to say.
¿Vas a ingresar?
Tal vez yo tengo una pregunta. Solo tengo una pregunta. ¿Eso es por COVID? Ok. ¿Y puedo hacer prueba aquí o cómo es?
No, primero que nada, pues tienes que traer tu...
¿Máscara? Yo tengo una máscara, pero... Yo escuché, gente puede hacer pruebas por COVID aquí.
Sí, pero te hospitalizan.
Ah, ok. Parece como no hay mucha gente, no tan...
No, toda esa gente está para entrar.
¿Es mucha gente? ¿Sí? No parece como... ¿Estás lleno con gente? ¿Sí?
Toda esa gente que estés ahí es para entrar a la revisión.
Ok. Pero yo no puedo revisar.
¿Pero traes número de seguridad social?
No, soy extranjero. ¿Es taxista o...?
Sí.
Solo pregunta, ¿es mucha gente viene aquí?
Más o menos.
Pero no tanto, ¿no?
No, ahorita hay poquita.
Poquito, ok. Sí, gracias. Hola. ¿Puedo entrar?
Sí.
Gracias. Solo una pregunta. ¿Estás muy ocupado con...?
No.
No. Porque las noticias dice muchos muriendo y cosas. ¿Qué piensas? No es verdad, ¿no? No. Ok, gracias. I should have brought a hidden camera.
After finding closed and empty crematoriums and empty hospitals and bored taxi drivers and funeral stores that aren't busy at all.
And then another report of all the death and destruction in Brazil. Everybody's dying, etc., etc. And again, is all as it seems. Have a look.
But in Brazil, they say, oh, it's so bad in Brazil right now. So apparently some people from the Brazilian parliament broke into a hospital that claimed to have 5,000 infected and 200 deaths from COVID-19 and caught them red-handed. Not one person was there.
Cheguei, qual é? Eu vou entrar. E vai agora. Cadê o armado? Vem comigo. Ele não quer deixar eu entrar no hospital. Vem cá. Entra comigo aqui. Agora eu vou entrar. Vai segurando. Jesus, deixa ninguém chegar perto de mim. Ninguém. E se chegar, toma todo o procedimento, vou caminhar para a delegacia. Se ficar aqui, eu vou caminhar para a delegacia. Mete o pé. Ouviu? Vai cair para a delegacia? Vai para a delegacia? Se não quiser abrir o portão. Tá fazendo sacanagem. É o quê? Aqui é privado? Aqui é ladrão, rapaz. Só tem bandido aqui, rapaz. Campo privado aqui. Isso aqui é obra pública. É dinheiro do povo. É dinheiro do povo, rapaz. É dinheiro do povo. E me barra pra você ver. Me barra pra você ver. Quem é isso aí, cara? Se não é privado, esquece. Ninguém fala nada. É aqui todo mundo. Vamos lá. Essa é por isso que não queria deixar eu entrar, gente. Ó. Isso aqui é pra inaugurar hoje. Olha isso aqui. Não tem nada pronto. Uma covardia da população. Ladrão, governador safado. Ladrão, empresa e abas. Você é corrupta. Por isso que não queriam deixar o deputado entrar. Isso aqui era para estar sendo inaugurado desde o dia 13 de abril. Olha o estado disso aqui. Olha isso aqui. Aqui. Botaram para entrar. Eu tiro aqui e entro. Não, calma aí. Ninguém me respeitou. Como que deixaram entrar? Agora vamos começar o show. Bora. O senhor pode entrar, segurança não. O senhor pode entrar, segurança não importa que eu... Então cala a boca, não fala comigo. Cala a boca, pô. Então vem cá falar comigo, pô. Vem cá falar comigo. Vai correr. Ninguém me responde, seu merda. Você é um ladrão.
I think one of the things that we have to realize about Brazil especially is we know that the testing is inaccurate, and we also know that it is a very, very, very heavily polluted country in some areas, and they've got some really nasty injuries. So we can expect that there are people that are going to be coming down with respiratory conditions. Is that going to be related to this virus, or is this being labeled? And bear in mind that most of the time these people aren't getting tested. It's a doctor just looking at them, and the symptoms for this pandemic that we're hearing about are exactly the same as a cold or a flu or a respiratory disease, or I guess being affected by air pollution, for example. So I think the idea is we have to raise awareness about some of these things, and we have to feel comfortable that we ask questions. There are a lot of people asking questions about this. There's some doctors, there's actually many doctors all around the world asking questions about these kind of things, and they're actually getting shut down. They don't seem to have a voice. This is why I think it's important to be raising this kind of information. Even a recent report that came out a couple of days ago that's just been published, technically speaking, I'm not allowed to talk about this. And just have a look at it and see what you think.
We had a total in the analysis that we did, the final analyzed data set had 2,047 children. These 2,047 children were from 3 representative pediatrician practices across the United States, and we were able to follow them up from birth in those medical practices, through their vaccination records, through their first year of life, all the way until they were at least 3 years of age, in order to see if we could get specific diagnoses and what the outcomes were for those that were vaccinated for their first year of life versus those that were not vaccinated during their first year of life.
And so really they could have been vaccinated after that first year of life, but you were just trying to see if in that first year you were vaccinated, how does it affect the rest of your health outcomes as you move forward to the age of 3? What were the things that jumped out in this study as you looked at it?
Well, we looked at 4 different conditions. First of all, developmental delays, then ear infections, asthma, and gastrointestinal disorders. We did want to look at specific developmental delays like autism, but our sampling size was so small, and these were practices that were friendly to unvaccinating families, and so we had fully 30% of that group was unvaccinated, and about 70% was vaccinated during the first year of life. And what stood out specifically was a very, very, very high correlation between vaccines and asthma, also vaccines, developmental delays, and then vaccines and ear infections. And then when we went further in our analysis, we actually looked at the number of vaccines that children received in their first year of life versus those who were unvaccinated. And as more vaccines were added, as children were following the CDC schedule, which is up to 21 vaccines during the first year of life, then we saw those relationships strengthen, and we also saw a strong, statistically significant relationship with gastrointestinal disorders. So it was an effect not only for vaccinated versus unvaccinated, but it was also an effect that strengthened if a child during their first year of life was getting more vaccines.
So you even saw more vaccination was higher than less vaccination, that led to more health issues, for instance, in the vaccinated group.
Children that were vaccinated during their first year of life were 4.5 times more likely to get an asthma diagnosis than those that received no vaccine. So it was very, very high, and it was also highly statistically significant, beyond any type of doubt, beyond anything that would be, say, oh, well, unvaccinated children go to the doctor less, so there's a difference in healthcare seeking behavior. These, what we call effect estimates, which are basically increased risk, were all above 2.0, which means that there's just no way that they can be explained away. There is some type of relationship with them getting a vaccine during the first year of life and these disorders.
And here is his discussion about how hard it was to get his information published. And when we're looking in some of these big medical journals of anything that discredits the fact that this pandemic is not as serious as it is it gets published immediately, and anything that kind of says that the figures are the same as a common cold or flu, it gets ridiculed. And in actual fact, even the CDC statistics are saying that that's the case now. Why is that? We need some critical thinking. It's interesting the difficulty that this guy had in getting his information published. Just have a look at it.
Was it difficult to get this paper published?
I have to laugh. The peer review process normally, you know, I've published over 60 peer-reviewed scientific articles in my career, and the peer review process typically takes anywhere from 2 months to 4 months. And for this particular paper, we were under some type of peer review for 1.5 years, for fully 18 months. And the first 6 months were journals just basically rejecting the article without even allowing it to be peer reviewed. And then the final 12 months were Sage Open Medicine, just checking, double checking, triple checking. We went through 4 rounds of peer review with this journal, which is, we're very fortunate that they would publish such a work.
So the comment I would have is, technically, I wouldn't be allowed to say that to somebody. So if there is a mother, or if you're a parent, or if you're a father, and you realize that this information is available and it could affect your child, is that something that you would like to know about or not? I know my position on that. It's incredibly straightforward. How can we have a balanced discussion if information from another side is just getting hidden from us and it's not getting discussed? For me, I think we have to raise awareness. We have to, if we're aware of this kind of information, be discussing it and finding out what's going on. And again, just to reiterate, technically, I'm actually not allowed to tell somebody about this stuff now. Literally, something came through from the registration board in Queensland, and if I were to talk about this to a prospective client, I could get deregistered. What's going on with that? That is insanity for me to even have this concept. Again, these are the regulations that we're working under, and we have to question why that's happening. So to reiterate, I think we have to have critical thinking. We have to ask, and we have to dig deeper when we hear these headlines, especially the headlines revolving around fear and fear-mongering. And from what I can gather with the information I can see, it's not necessary to have this fear-mongering. Again, we have to look at the information around wearing masks. We know that wearing masks for all sorts of reasons is harmful. There is no scientific evidence to validate the wearing of masks unless you have an active cold or flu and you're producing droplets. A virus going through a mask is like a fly going through a barn door. It doesn't stop anything. And wearing a mask makes you slightly hypoxic. Okay, that means your level of oxygen goes down and you rebreathe carbon dioxide. It's a thing called hypercapnia, and this actually is harmful for you. And this idea that we walk around and a mask is going to help us and we don't touch it, what about the rest of your clothes? If there's this deadly thing going around, you know, what, are you going to burn everything? Burn all your clothes? It's not as if this mask is just going to collect everything. Okay, what are you going to do? Burn your house just to protect you from this little mysterious thing that's causing havoc? Okay, and statistically, unless you're immunosuppressed or compromised in some way from an immune condition, your chances of getting sick from this thing are just about zero. They are tiny, tiny, tiny. This information we're giving about incessant hand washing is harmful. We've got a protective layer on our skins. It's a fatty, called a lipid layer. A lipid is just another word for fat. And if we keep on washing our hands, this breaks down. This actually means that from an immune point of view, and picking up some kind of infection or disease, you're more prone to get it. So this is why we have to fact check and we have to question information we're given. There's no scientific evidence for social distancing, none whatsoever. Yet we have whole countries in lockdown. What's going on with this? I think collectively we need to be raising our voices and asking more questions about this. And we need to be putting the people who are making these decisions under scrutiny. They need to be held accountable. And finally, another thing which I'm going to talk about in more detail is the difference between a profiteer and a philanthropist. Okay, and here's a little clip of Bill Gates talking about not putting his money into traditional investments, but instead putting his money into vaccine companies. And here is a chat about his returns that he's going to get from that.
Over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
So again, this person who is donating money to these charities and these organizations, a donation means that you don't get a return on investment. Bill Gates' personal wealth and his charities have just about doubled in the last 5 years. Okay, this is not philanthropy, this is profit, and this is investing. So when we're hearing propaganda about the motives behind some of these people, we have to think again. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that breakdown of a few things that we need to be looking at, and I intend to be putting some more of these chats together in the future, and I'd love your comments on them. Feel free to send me some messages, subscribe to some of this stuff, because I'll collect some information that you might not be able to find readily available elsewhere.